Thank you all so much for being here tonight. We want to welcome you on behalf of our superintendent, Dr. Miriam Yarbrough. I don't know if all of you saw our communication at around 4, a little after 4 p.m., that unfortunately, due to an urgent matter, she will not be able to attend. However, we are still excited to be here because we have our Executive Director of Special Education, Allison Myers. A round of applause. Welcome, Allison. And so we have a lot in store for you this evening. We're going to get started with a video from our county executive. And first, actually, let me rewind and introduce myself. My name is Boyende Onijala, and I'm the Director of Communications and Community Engagement. And this is the 9th event that we've had where members of Team BCPS have been able to come out, ask questions, engage in conversations with us. And we know that tonight's going to be a really enriching and rigorous conversation as well. So we're going to play a video from our county executive, and then we'll have Allison come up and give a presentation on the special education strategic plan. There's a lot of work and effort and heart that has gone into the work around improvements for special education services. That's why we felt it was still very important to have this meeting, because the school year is 27 days away. People have questions, want to know how we are going to be serving your children, your students. And so we're excited to present this information to you. Dr. Yarbrough has pledged to host an additional meeting to meet with the special education community, and we will share that date once it's confirmed. It will be this month, prior to the start of the school year. Again, she is committed to engaging with every member of Team BCPS. So I just want you to really understand that this is, we're here because we're dedicated and committed to sharing this information with you, ensuring that you have the resources you need to support your child and all of their academic journey with Team BCPS. So we're gonna play a video from the county executive. Allison's going to share some information about the work that we've been doing to enhance, improve, make adjustments to special education services. We'll engage in roundtable conversations where you'll answer 3 specific questions. We'll have you report out what your tables have discussed. Following that, we'll have a period of general question and answer. Allison will recap again what she shared, what she's heard tonight, what are next steps for the Department of Special Education, and then we'll get you out to enjoy this summer evening. I know you all have a million things that you could be doing. It is summer. We're counting down already. We're excited to have everyone back at the start of the school year on Monday, August 28th. So I'm gonna get ready to play the video, and then we'll welcome Allison up to the podium, or to the front of the room to share. Before I do that, I do want to recognize the Vice Chair of the Board of Education, Ms. Robin Harvey. Please stand to be recognized. Thank you. Christina Pumphrey, also a member of the Board of Education, is here. And then as we have other officials join us this evening, we'll stop to recognize them. So thank you again for coming tonight, and let's get started.
Hey folks, Baltimore County Executive Johnny O here, and I just want to thank you and Dr. Miriam Yarbrough for being present tonight as she conducts her town halls and her meet and greets as she prepares to become our new BCPS superintendent. I have to say I'm really excited about the future of the school system and working with her and all of you. As county executive, as a former teacher, and now as the parent of a 2nd grader in our county school system. But I really just want to thank all the faculty and staff members for being here and all you do, the community members, and Dr. Yarbrough for being available and transparent and accessible in this process. I really look forward to all that we're going to do together in partnership in the years ahead. Thanks again for coming out tonight.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited about this turnout. I do want to say that the opportunity to be able to be here and to have Dr. Yarbrough really champion this work around special education is a breath of fresh air for us. It's so exciting. I'll share just a bit. I'm a product of Baltimore County as far as my career. I started in Baltimore County about 20 years ago. I was a teacher at Deep Creek Middle School. I went from Deep Creek Middle School as a special educator to an assistant principal at Ridgely Middle, then had the opportunity to work in the Office of Special Education after that for several years before I had the opportunity to become principal at White Oak School. And when I realized at that time that my heart really continues to be with special education and the opportunity came to come into this department and lead, I took that opportunity. And then with this amazing opportunity to work with Dr. Yarbrough now is just very exciting. So as I'm going to talk through, we have been engaging over the last few months in the development of a strategic plan for the improvements of special education. Many of you know historically in our system, special education has been a challenge. We realize we have disproportionality of placement for our students with eligibility for our Black and African American students. We have indicators that are showing that we haven't been making the gains and progress that we need to make. And we realize that there's an issue with our being transparent and communication with families, and that's something that we're really truly committed to. I want to acknowledge when you look around the Department of Special Education staff that is here tonight. I want you to see this commitment of those that are here to really hear. We are committed to improving communication and connecting with families and really wanting to be able to do this differently. We're in a time of reimagining how we do services, and that's really what this work is about. And again, having been in the system a long time, it hasn't ever that I've had a superintendent and said, let's meet with the community, with the executive director of special education, and let's engage in this conversation. This is the first time I remember that, and I said that to Boyende today. So I want you to hear that and her commitment to this, and I know that it's going to be exciting when she is able to join us and continue this conversation. So with that being said, as I said, we engaged in a process this year around developing both a vision, a mission, starting with, and then our belief statements. We took feedback. We worked with this strategic planning committee. We purposely worked with broad stakeholder groups. We know that within our system, we've had a lot of plans around improving special education. The difference being that we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just about the Department of Special Ed itself and our thoughts on this, but we wanted to hear from stakeholders. Wanted to hear from families, from teachers, from principals, from offices within our system, from stakeholders outside of the system, other organizations, to say how do we want to reimagine services? Where are our needs? What are the things that we need to be doing better? And be able to get to a place of improving outcomes for our students and families. So with that, this vision was developed that all students receiving special education services are embraced by their school communities and achieve their goals in school and life. I want to highlight that, embraced in their school communities. We often hear from our families that they don't feel part of their school community, that as a family of a student receiving special education services, that they want to be able to have access to their home school or to a school community. That's something we really want to improve and we're committed to. Our mission, working collaboratively to foster the unique strengths of every student receiving special education services. That strengths-based approach, right? Being really important. Our students have strengths that we want to capitalize. Let's see where those strengths are. Let's have conversations. How do we capitalize on those for them to make progress, meaningful progress, and also for families to feel engaged. Then those belief statements, and I'm going to take a minute and read these because I think they're really important. And I'll talk through with you. All of you have the strategic plan sitting on your tables if you want to reference this as we're going through. So we believe in celebrating the strengths and abilities of all of our students. I just said that one. Building and sustaining trusting relationships with students, families, schools, partners, and each other. Relationships are critical. It's something that we're committed to. You can see that with Dr. Yarbrough and these ongoing community events, wanting to really foster relationships and communication. Supporting students in achieving their IEP and personal goals. Serving our students, families, and schools with compassion and care. Importance, right? Wanting it to be that we're in this together, having an understanding, again, of our students and their needs and how we can interact. And families. Practicing equity, inclusion, and belonging. That's a key that needs to be through everything we're doing. Being very clear on that we need to keep equity and inclusion at the center of our work. So really, that one, we had an exercise yesterday. I'll go off topic for a second here. We had an exercise yesterday working on the implementation plan for this strategic work. And part of our conversation was that value has to show up in everything that we're doing, and it does show up. So if we could, highlight one that's most important for some of us, that became the one that's in there, is that importance for practicing equity, inclusion, and belonging. Using evidence-based practices and data-driven decision-making. So making sure that everything we're doing is with a purpose, it's measurable, we're using best practices, that we're using evidence-based practices in order to make the best decisions for our students. And then finally, being transparent and making continuous improvements. You're going to hear me say this over and over, is that we want to be transparent. We want to do things differently. We are excited about the opportunity to reimagine and shift how we're servicing our students and families, and that we want to be transparent in that. We're available. If you have questions, you have comments, we want to hear those, and we want to be able to have a collaborative conversation to make things better in the best interest of students and families. So then I'm going to take you on a walk now through this exciting strategic plan roadmap. And I do want to note that what you see on your table is, it does have the word draft, and this is not a draft. We are excited to say that this is our plan. This is what we're running with. Dr. Yarbrough is excited for this work, and we're excited to be able to say that this is the work as we're moving through this school year. So on that side there, you see the vision, mission, and belief statements. I encourage you, take this home and put it on your refrigerator. Hold us to this, guys. This is important. Our results there. I wish I'd memorized these, but my eyes are really not fantastic anymore. Those results are those, I want to say this for a second. Those results are those things that you think about 10 years down the road where we want to be. These are called population level results. Those are those things that we say, you know what, in 10 years, what is it that we want? How do we want things to be? This is important for us to keep in mind. We want all children receiving special education services and their families and caregivers to feel accepted, embraced, and supported by their school and community. How important is that? We feel that students and their families have a range of comprehensive supports and resources for growth and achievement. So every student and family, 10 years from now, hopefully sooner than that, will really have a range of comprehensive supports and resources for that growth and achievement. So those are accessible. All children receiving special education services meet or exceed educational outcomes to become college, career, and community ready. And I do want to highlight in our feedback from multiple stakeholder groups, our CCAT group, which I do want to acknowledge, our Special Ed Citizens Advisory Committee, really had great feedback or wanting to say not only community, not only college and career, which we often heard, but community ready, because that looks different for all of our students, and the importance of being community ready as well. So just highlighting that, you know, how we've made shifts as we've gone through. That special education services are fully funded to enable all students receiving services to be in their least restrictive environment. So highlighting here that we're excited about Blueprint coming forth, and the funding that comes to Blueprint and the importance of that. Also, I want to highlight here that it's in their least restrictive environment. We know that in our school system, and in all systems, that there's a continuum of services. Not every student is going to access services in their home school. We understand that. We would like all students to be able to have the opportunity. We also acknowledge that it's in the students in their least restrictive environment. And then finally, the last of these are all educators and leaders receive rigorous, comprehensive training and professional development to effectively support students. So we know that in order to continue to make improvements and shifts and to do what's in the best interest of students and families, we have to continue to provide professional learning and ensure that that professional learning is aligned with where things are at that time and what we need to improve upon. So moving on from there, we have our priorities and strategies. Back up one slide. So we've aligned these to 3 areas, which is exciting. We continued, as we talked to people, we heard over and over that they were really falling into these 3 main areas: our people, our services, and our culture. So under those, I'm not going to read these all aloud to you because you all have these in front of you, but I want to just highlight that where those stand, under our priorities of our people, you'll see things talking about looking at workload for our special educators, wanting to ensure that we have appropriate really look at our staffing plan to ensure that we have the appropriate resources where they need to be. Supporting efforts to attract and retain talented and commitment department and school-based staff. Looking at fiscal management across the department. Collaborating with HR to develop professional growth and advancement. Those are the things you're going to find under the commitment to our people, how we can grow and sustain our special educators and our general educators who also are providers of service, right? That's a key piece to this as well. Our services, really wanting to partner and share resources to support and promote a system-wide approach to learning that puts students first. Our students receiving special education services are general education students first, right? They're general education students who receive services. So we want to make sure that our students receiving special ed services are receiving not only all of that they should as general education students, but that we're also then making sure that they have the resources they need as special education students. And with that comes collaboration across content areas, comes collaboration across offices to ensure that we're working collaboratively to meet those needs. So we are committed under here, you'll see that general education programs to ensure the highest quality education for all students. Really looking to increase the fidelity of service delivery models. For those of you who might have a child who's accessing one of our regional programs, a special education program that might be outside of your home school, we want those services to be consistent across our system. So no matter which regional program you go in that is designed to meet the unique needs of your student, if you were to move to another area of the county, you could ensure that those same services and that same fidelity of service would be provided in that other school. So that's really important. I mentioned this, collaborating with content area offices on the development of curriculum, really making sure that our students receiving special education services are at the core of what we're doing to improve student achievement. And a couple others, we talk about transition services, that's being important, enhancing transition services and post-secondary outcomes for our students. Our students are with us from birth to 21. So from the time we have friends that from the time they're born until they exit at 21, and it's our job to make sure that, again, they're college, career, and community ready when they're exiting. And then going over to our culture, that importance of collectively creating and embedding a culture of trust, inclusion, belonging, and service. Hopefully you're hearing this loud and clear from me, is that we really are committed to engaging with families, doing this differently, wanting to provide parent information sessions, wanting to connect with families to ensure that folks are engaged and have the information they need to make informed decisions about your students. It's really hard when you feel that you're in the dark and then you're sitting at an IEP team table and having to make decisions and you don't have all that information, and that's critical. So we are committed to being able to increase that communication. And you can see here, developing and adopting a service-oriented approach. We've heard the feedback that our team may have not always been as accessible as we'd like them to be. Or that schools, we hear from schools that they need response to look differently at times, or families to receive a call back in a different. We need to shift that, and we are committed to doing so. I think that's good, yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so here's the most important part of this plan. We are holding ourselves accountable. This is based on results-based accountability. I'm excited that I now know that, Ms. Harvey. And that, we're committed to saying that not only are we going to say we're going to do these things, but we need to measure to be able to know that we're meeting these outcomes. As I said, over the years as a department, we've had special education plans that say we're going to do a lot of things over time. The difference with this is we need to hold ourselves to the measures that are there. Again, I'm not going to read these to you as I've continued to do a bit of, but you'll see that we have in areas that we're saying 100%. We're saying 100% because that's showing our level of commitment. We want to say that 100% of our elementary schools are supported by an IEP facilitator. And I'll tell you, that's something that Dr. Yarbrough is very committed to, as she's already made some shifts to be able to support not only IEP team facilitators, but some contractual IEP team leaders to be able to support that process. That's huge. So that's an example of not only the commitment, I will say, from our superintendent, but also that we see this as an indicator and it's something we want to meet, and we're doing that. Some other things you'll see in here is, I want to say the 100% of special educators and general educators report having the resources and support to implement curriculum. Now, do we think that year one we're going to hit 100%? I'm going to hope that, but I also know that we're going to start there, we're going to get our baseline after that, and then we're going to grow from there. But you're seeing 100% because we're saying we're committed to getting there. Some others that you'll see in here is ongoing parent engagement sessions, which we're committed to, this being really what will be the first of that, which is fantastic. And doing staff satisfaction surveys, really increasing parent. We want to hear back from our families. I will tell you, in the development of our strategic plan, we reached out to families, and we did have good parent communication and feedback. However, it was not where I wanted it to be. So of all that when we looked at our responses, it was very clear that we weren't hitting everyone. While we did have a sample from the broad community, we know we're missing the mark. We know we're missing the mark on being able to get to our families, and we need that to increase with our parent surveys and feedback. We're going to have monthly system-wide special education communication to all parents. And what fashion that come, maybe through parent newsletters, it may come through the system, it may come through our department, but we are committed to being able to have a communication to families. And then you'll see in here various other measures, but the importance being that we want for you to see that we're holding ourselves accountable as a system. And with that, okay, you want me to? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Allison. If we could give her a round of applause for that. Thank you. All right, so now we're really going to engage in conversation. My colleagues are going to walk around and hand out chart paper for the tables, and you have 3 questions on the screen that we would like you to respond to as a group. Talk about it, debate it, come to consensus, write it down on the piece of chart paper. And the 3 questions are, what does BCPS do well that you would like to see us continue? That could be specific to special education, or it could just be in general about your experience as a BCPS parent, staff member, student. What are your aspirations and hopes for BCPS Special Education Services? Allison just did a terrific job kind of walking us through the process of getting to this FY 24-26 strategic roadmap, all of the intentional planning and thinking and communicating that has gone into this process to ensure that you can then hold us accountable, as she said, to some of these performance measures. And then what are 2 areas of improvement in special education that you would like to see addressed immediately? Again, what are 2 areas of improvement in special education that you would like to see addressed immediately? We're going to give you a few minutes to talk about it as a group, as a table, and then when it's time to report out, we ask that you select 1 spokesperson. And we have a lot of people in this room tonight, which we're really excited about. And so to ensure that we can hear from every single table in this room, we ask that you pick 1 thing from each question to report out. So some people may come up with a list of 10 things that you believe BCPS does well that you would like to see us continue. We ask that you only share 1 of those things, and the same for the other 2 questions. And we will come around when it's time for the reporting out. We'll come around with the microphones. We ask that you do not take the microphone from us. We found that people, when they have microphones in their hands, like to share a lot, which is great. We love it. Thank you. But because we have a lot to get through tonight and we want to hear from everyone, we ask that you not take the microphone from us as we come around to your table. And so again, select 1 spokesperson, report out 1 thing from each question, and then Allison, of course, and her team will be taking notes on things that are being shared. We will collect the chart paper at the end of the evening and share all of this information with Dr. Yarbrough as well. If we run out of time tonight when we get to the general question and answer portion, there are question cards on the table for you to put your very specific questions down. And Allison has pledged that her team will respond and get back to you if you have very specific questions about your student, about your children, about your school. And so there's that commitment to ensure that you all hear back from folks.
And I just want to note that we are in a public forum, guys, right? So I know we have we want to hear your stories. We want you to share. I want you to be mindful of that. So that if you have a student-specific concern, please write that down and share it with us, and we'll get back to you individually. I don't want that student information shared broadly. And I know, especially with regards to the content, we just want to be clear and be mindful of our student information. So thank you so much.
Thank you for that very important reminder, Allison. So let's get to chatting at our tables, engaging in conversation. I will give you a 5-minute warning and then a 2-minute warning, and then I'll say time's up. And then we'll start walking from table to table for the report out. So thank you, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. And before we start reporting out, we do want to recognize Vanessa Clark-Brooks, who is the Chief of Staff for Delegate N. Scott Phillips. Thank you so much for attending this evening. Thank you. All right, so Charlie, where are you? Okay, Charlie's over there. I have the other microphone. We're going to walk around to each table, have your spokesperson ready to go. Again, just a gentle reminder, please do not take the microphones from us. Keep your comments brief. Report out on 1 thing for each question. That way we can get to all of our tables. So Charlie, do you want to start back there? And I'll start up here. All right.
Good evening. One of the things that we said that is being done well is there is a partnership. We have some partnerships such as with Thrive, and we feel that that's going to be beneficial to the students, especially those with special needs. As far as things that could be improved, reaching out more to the parents. Not just waiting for the parents to come to you, reaching out more to the parents. Hopefully, in looking at the plan, that we'll be able to do some of that. And things that can be done immediately, and this should help tremendously. One, monitoring the special needs students' transportation to and from school. And ultimately important, once they are at school, we need to really adequately and actively follow through with the progress monitoring. Students are not going to improve if we are not, all of us, doing the progress monitoring. They're going to fall through the cracks. And also, taking parent concerns seriously. Don't just chuck it to the side. Seriously. And lastly, I love that thing that says 100% for the IEP facilitator we do for elementary schools, and not knowing whether you're going to get there or not, but I've worked a lot with middle schools. Will there ever be some of these facilitators in the middle schools so that there's no break?
Hello. So at our table, let's see, I guess I'll pick one that's different. So we emphasize that among doing well, that we have really great teachers involved in schools. And let's see, I think he went through communication, so I'll go to the next one. So we talked about having more timely assessments of the children so that they can get services, even sooner and have them be appropriate for their skill set. And then for improvement, I guess I'll go with the meeting the IEP representatives before the meeting, and that is tied to not wanting to show up at the IEP meeting and be unfamiliar with the people and not know how they've interacted with your child, and so just help parents to be familiar with them in advance.
Thank you, Charlie.
All right, so from our table, we thought that the school system is really good at building relationships and having teachers with qualifications and certifications for our children. Aspirations, we had a chunky list here. We wanted increased safety measures. We wanted increased after-school programs, including funding and choice of opportunities, equal access to resources regardless of race or zip code, an inclusive environment in all schools. We talked about vocational programming in schools. Not everyone is college-bound. More equitable zoning, making legal documents like the IEP more parent-friendly, and having our IEP reps informed before the student actually starts and can start the discussion with parents ahead of time. Immediate areas from improvement, we would like transportation schedule, any bus issues resolved. And we learned that the special ed resource liaison for parents recently left her position, and we would love to have a new liaison so we can have increased sharing of resources and opportunities, so increased communication efforts as well.
Thank you.
Oh, let me see if I can see it. Yeah, I got it. Thank you. Hi. So our group, for the first question, it was real simple about what BCPS does well, and that is amazing educators. We can't say that enough. There are amazing people that work here with our kids, and we appreciate that. So keep it. For improvement, we came up with two general areas. The first is communication, which could be regards to transportation, the ELL population, directly with parents, specific reporting about incidents and safety. So we're looking for far better communication. And then the second thing that we would like to see improved is resources being standardized, and that could be staffing, could be training, retention. The workload for our teachers needs to be appropriate to what they can do. Safety needs to be consistent for our students in all areas, and also making sure that the students have the proper equipment and space. So resources need to be clearer, cleaner, and consistent throughout the county.
Thank you. Thank you. Charlie, over to you.
Area and improvement, more mental health services across grade levels, including anxiety, post-COVID, and separation and socialization. More supports for special education plus general education staff, trained staff, additional adult assistance, and e-learning.
All right. Thank you. Okay.
All right, so some things that we think BCPS does well. Parents have said they have had a lot of good experience with teachers. Family-teacher relationships are wonderful. Teachers getting services for students, even if they were not brought up until team. Hopes for BCPS, more in-person related services, more co-teaching, especially with our little guys. Caseload reduction for more in-class time for special educators. And more certified providers. And then our areas of improvement, addressing ableism throughout staff in the county, and responsiveness to schools, making sure that schools are getting immediate responses rather than waiting for weeks for an answer.
Thank you. Thank you.
We are proud of preparing to meet new students' needs and student-centered responsive teams. A lot of people mentioned that they've seen some really great student-centered response. The ABA supports, and we are hoping for a systemic change from our superintendent at their level. We hope for increased staffing. We also would like it to be more equitable around the whole entire county. We are hoping for standards for staffing around the county and state levels. We are looking for behavior challenges. Teachers can't. Oh, so sorry. We discussed about there's a lot of behaviors and challenges that teachers aren't capable of supporting necessarily, especially with the staff, and the lack of staffing and also the lack of support, and then having a person physically present and not virtually, especially for like outside services. Speech was brought up. We know that some students need that physical touch or that in-person notification stuff, and then needing certified teachers. Some teachers are being hired with not all the qualifications, and then making sure that teachers are supported and not reprimanded for needing support.
Thank you.
Yeah, this way so they can see you.
Okay. So one of the things we said that BCPS was doing well is that we feel welcome by our local schools, our providers, teachers, and just very open communication. One of the second question for aspiration and hopes for BCPS is that services would be provided that are in the IEP on a consistent and appropriate level, such as speech services and nursing services. And the third question, what are two areas of improvement, would be the retention of services. They need to be provided on a consistent level for our kids. They really need that routine and relationship building.
For number one, we had what's working well. Okay, what's working well is infants and toddlers, the birth to 5 experience. We said we start off very personable and helpful in kickstarting a child's education. For our hopes, better professional development for teachers, experienced IEP facilitators across the board, elementary to high school, consistency delivery of services across the county and equitable. So number 3, our areas of improvement, better communication with changes that occur within the school system, transportation, more certified teachers and educators in schools.
Thank you. Okay, we're back here.
Okay. What we want to do well at this table is continue with current parent accommodations, texts, emails, etc. Dedicated educators, families who want to be involved, Aspirations of parents are part of at-home services, follow-ups, etc. Hopes are inclusiveness, decreased teacher-to-student ratio, real transparency, comprehension, and critical thinking, retention, and development.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so for what BCPS does well, we had implementing LRE, or the least restrictive environment. Hopes for special ed, we had early intervention, willingness to evaluate children for specialized services, SLDs, not requiring failure first, train special educators in Norton-Gillingham, progress/tracking of interventions to ensure it's done with fidelity, and plans for remediation, programs for writing and dyscalculia, and accountability for local schools to follow. Ready to Read Act, tiers of intervention, strategic roadmap. 2 areas of improvement were hiring and training of special educators, enough to support the need, and early intervention, remediation, and identification for students with SLDs.
Thank you so much. Last but not least, okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. My group came up with the following. What does Baltimore County do well? We said forms such as this, and also resources. Our aspirations and hope, this was a really popular one. Understanding equity issues as it relates to Black males and females receiving services. I know you only said one, but I'm gonna throw this one in. Boots on the ground. We need more boots on the ground. And third, 2 areas of improvement, human resources, and a better understanding with new educators learning the IEPs and the 504s, actually what it means.
Absolutely. Thank you. Did we get to all of the tables? Did we miss any tables? Okay. And so now we want to have a period of question and answer. Any questions that you have for Ms. Myers about special education, about the plan, about the work that the team is going to be doing? She is happy and excited to answer your questions. And again, if you have very specific student questions, we ask that you utilize the question feedback card so that a member of her team can reach out to you and ensure that you are getting the resources and support that you need. So anyone have, oh, here we go. I saw 2 hands go.
Hi, well, I understand that our kids are having a lot of gaps, and COVID's been a big issue with that. But I want to know why BCPS has cut certain programs even further since then. For example, ESY, every year we see more cuts to that program, and it was designed to help our children fill in the gaps in the summer. For one example, is now it's 4 days instead of 5. Another cut that has happened each year is that there were more options for parents. They could have ESY at their school, or there were other really great programs like Firefly, where your kids could get a camp experience in an environment or at a school that had resources for special needs, as well as their math and science and all of that. That seems to be cut as well. So I do want to know what we're going to do to kind of fill in those gaps, and what could be done during the school year to help that too.
Thank you so much for your question. So I want to say we actually had a fantastic conversation around summer programming today, actually, and talking about some unique options and things that have been in place over time and what that looks like. We value the opportunity for those kind of inclusive options in programming, which is what you talk about with Camp Firefly. Being principal of White Oak, I was able to experience that for several years. So we do hear the benefits in that. And what I would say is, extended school year services are part of the IEP team process. I don't want to give you a canned response, but that is part of the process, and we want to talk about what a student is eligible and how those services are provided. And I think we're committed to, and I said we just had this conversation today, committed to having conversations around how we can best meet the needs of our students during the summer months and what those kind of flexible options might look like. Because we do acknowledge that that is an important set of services for our students, and there's a large number of students that need our extended year services. And how does that come into play in collaboration with summer programming and et cetera? So I think there'll be more information coming, but we thank you for sharing that as a question.
just looking at the roadmap, a lot of it talks about children who are already receiving special education, but one of the challenges is just becoming eligible for special education and identifying those children that really have the needs. I think there are a lot of stories out there of children who are being told, or families that are being told their kids need to be 2 years behind, they need to fail first, they need to show no progress, they're not being evaluated. So I'm hoping maybe you can elaborate on what the plan is to actually identify and diagnose children so that they can then be eligible for special education.
Yeah, thank you for that great question. So actually, I'm going to highlight on here is one of the things we talked about was making sure to redefine and establish that interdisciplinary student support team to focus on individualized kind of supports for students. And part of that is looking at the continuum and eligibility. So before students are identified, whether or not they need special education services, whether or not they can be supported through a student support plan or a 504 plan, depending on the needs of the student. So what you're talking about is our child find process, right, as well, that we need to really continue to, ensure is being implemented with fidelity. And I think with, again, parent communication and information. So making sure that our parents are informed about the possibilities for services, what that looks like, what the IEP team process looks like, so that families are able to access those services in a timely fashion. And then I would just encourage families that if you're having a question, please feel free to reach out to us. Reach out and we can help with the school if there's a misunderstanding or whatever else, but we'll definitely talk through that process.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, thanks for having this forum. I know there's a practicality and efficiency to have IEP documents and team documents digitally done. But I think especially in a county as big as ours, with a digital divide that is still continuing, I think parents still need to be able to access paper copies and have those available and have things signed on paper. And I know we're trying to move toward digital, and I just want to ask that we keep in mind the digital divide and that paper copies still need to be readily available, and as well as signature done on wet instead of digital. So I just want to make sure that, especially I'm an ESOL teacher, and there's already so many barriers there that requiring everything be digital just makes it really hard for those parents to understand what is going on.
Thank you for that, and I would agree that we don't want there to be any barriers. So if there is a concern, that we would absolutely advocate for schools to provide that paper copy. That's part of having access to the information needed to be a true partner in the team process. So I agree with that. Thanks.
Myers? Okay, so we heard the word transportation echoed a few times this evening. So we as transporters are told that we're pivotal. We have a pivotal position, and we set the tone for our students' day of learning. And so I know I'm not an educator, but I do consider myself an educator on wheels with no classroom or curriculum. But I'm trained to support in building learning. So my question is, how do we connect with parents before it becomes a critical matter, before referrals are involved?
That's a fantastic question. Thank you. I thought we were going to go into training. I was going to talk about White Oak and some of the things that we did because I was excited. You totally threw me for a loop on that one, so thanks. That was great. No, I think what you're saying, first of all, I'm going to say thank you for wanting to engage with families, right? That's so important, and I see the nods of our, folks in schools in here. I think I'm going to say lean into the school principal, have that conversation. The folks that are your point of contact for transportation in the building, whether it's assistant principal or principal, and just say that as part of the IEP team and the IEP process, we should include training related to the students' IEP for transportation. So that's a critical component that you should be receiving training, understanding that IEP and a snapshot of that. So that is something that should be happening. And we also will say our department works we have a fantastic relationship with the Department of Transportation. So I would also say that, continue to say what you're saying. We'll also follow up to be able to share that there's other kind of resources. But I just want to thank you for that fantastic question, because we want that to be happening. We want you to be able to feel that you have all the resources you need to be able to support students. So thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm a paraeducator, and I work in a general education classroom primarily. And I know that one of the things that makes my life tremendously easier is when we are fully staffed for the AAAs, the one-on-one aides. Because if we are not fully staffed, then I end up having to do 2 jobs at one time. And what helped tremendously was when we upped the pay to $18 an hour and $20 an hour. And I just want to make sure that that pay increase stays, because I know it's a grant. And it helps everybody out at every single level.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My question is this: so that we're all on the same page, this parents and the staff, if you can touch on what the IEP facilitators' role and/or duties are, it would be great, because I think that is a very important position.
Absolutely, thank you. So actually, I had that down as a little note to say at the end. So our IEP facilitators are we have 2 different positions happening. Those are central office-based employees who work for our Office of Compliance that are able to go out and support elementary school IEP teams with the facilitation of the team. We realize in our elementary schools that has been a challenge for years, is that our assistant principals wear many hats, and they don't have the same resources that our secondary, our middle and high schools have with providing someone separate from the administrator to run the IEP teams. So we were able to have several IEP facilitator positions within our system that are able to go into schools and be able to support that IEP team process as the IEP team facilitator. Those folks also go out and coach our assistant principals in elementary schools, because we don't have enough IEP team facilitators for all elementary schools, but we do have, so those folks can go out and do that. They also support if there's really complex cases to be able to lean in and support teams with that. The IEP team leader positions, which I referenced, that are kind of an added component that Dr. Yarbrough was able to help us with this year, are added positions that are able to support schools to be able to help, again, with that team process. But those are going to be hired at the school site individually versus being central office allocated to go out and support schools. Great question. Thank you. Hi.
My question had to do with the your goals and your beliefs and the practicing equity, inclusion, and belonging. I want to emphasize that last part of belonging.
Yes.
How do you get the non-special needs students to embrace the needs of the special needs students? Because of bullying, a lot of these factors have to do with misunderstanding the capacity or different capacities of students. And I think there is an additional element when you're dealing with special needs students. So that's my question.
Thank you for that question. I appreciate it. So that one so you could tell that hit me, right? So I want to say this, is that I have a belief that that's something that needs to come also from grown-ups, right? Is that we talk about culture and climate and how we treat each other, how we treat our students, why it's so important for our students to be embraced in their schoolhouses by all teachers, that it's not those, we know that, right? Those students receiving special ed services, but they're our students, that we are all part of the school community. And I believe, you asked me, right, that I think that that's a starting point, is that for our students to feel embraced by that school community, for families to feel embraced, for them to see that the grown-ups embrace, and then I'm gonna embrace that student as well. I also think there's room for social skills around it. Sometimes we have to be very deliberate with instruction around. Sometimes we do need to say that this, Allison shows up in class in this way, and we need to help in this way. And usually that's with parent collaboration and training, and that's through the team process around how to do that. But those are all things that can be considered. So I appreciate the question, because I agree with you that belonging is huge. And that's a part that we know we hear as a concern. So I think that's, I just appreciate the question. Thank you.
Hi, Allison.
Hi. How does BCPS plan to ensure that the services that are documented in a child's IEP, especially the services in particular, when the child isn't receiving them, it's violating a child's free and public education, such as nursing services. So for instance, a child who requires nursing services legally cannot go to school without a nurse, which leaves the child at home. How does BCPS plan to solve this?
So service providers, we are aware of the needs of our service providers, and we'll continue to recruit and support through that process. We know critical shortage areas and how we need to lean in differently. And I think there's a variety of layers to your question. I appreciate that. So, even with regards to, the question around how we're ensuring implementation of the IEP, is that's through that progress monitoring that I think your table kind of referenced, the need for progress monitoring and coming back to the IEP team if we're not making progress, then what do we need to do differently? So, we're committed to continuing. We know there are critical shortage areas, and how we then continue to engage in those and provide services around it. And then I would encourage, if there's a specific question, I'd love to hear it. Please make a note so that we can have a conversation. Okay, thank you.
All right, we're going to take our final question back here.
My question is, as a special educator, what steps are we going to take to make it consistent when we're addressing the needs of our students? I've had individuals in leadership and also in training, they know what to do to get the process going, but we have so many different insights on how to get us there.
Mm-hmm. So I will highlight something we're doing for professional learning a bit different this year, is really focused on job-alike professional learning across kind of the areas of special education. So focusing on related to kind of that fidelity of programming. For example, our regional SEL programs, making sure that our teachers have a core professional learning with their group for the year in order to have a consistent and colleagues to be able to, have ideas and throw things off of. So consistent professional learning is critical to that. Also through our IEP chair trainings, our department chair trainings, having some continuous threads throughout those on specially designed instruction, for example. So I see professional learning be a key to that, and ensuring that folks have the information they need and the learning they need for implementation. I hope that answers some of your question. Yeah, thank you. Good, okay.
Thank you. And so before I toss it back to Allison for just some general closing remarks, just a reminder that you have the feedback question card on your table. Please fill it out. We will come around and collect all of them, as well as the chart paper, and share this information with Allison and her team, as well as with Dr. Yarbrough. I also want to reiterate that Dr. Yarbrough has committed to having another meeting for the special education community. For those of you who came in late and may be wondering where she is, she had an unexpected and urgent matter that she had to attend to, and she was unable to join us this evening. But in our message, we shared that before the month runs out, we are going to have another meeting with the special education community, because we are committed to hearing your voices, your questions, your concerns. So please fill out this question card. We're going to come around, collect all of the information, be on the lookout for information about the next scheduled meeting. I do want to thank Principal Shipman. Please stand to be recognized. Thank you for having us at the Milford Mill Academy. We were joking on the way in, they had blue and white balloons, and this is not their school, these are not their school colors. So it took a lot out of them to have the blue and white up. So thank you for welcoming us so warmly. Thank you to Allison Myers for then taking on the show all by yourself with the unexpected turn of events, and for sharing this critical information with our community. So Allison, any closing remarks? And so we'll let people get to their wonderful summer evenings.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all. I just want to reiterate again the excitement I have with this opportunity. We are in such a good space for the Department of Special Education and BCPS. So I would encourage you, I know when the date comes out, that I know Dr. Yarbrough wants to hear from you and wants to connect with you, and that's just so critical. So I'm excited, so thank you for being here. I do want to say two things. One is I want to highlight our Special Ed Citizens Advisory Committee, CCAC, the importance of that work. So that we'll have communications coming out from them related to kind of the schedule for the year and that aspect of things, but we just want to make sure that folks have that information. Julie, just quickly, this is one of our co-chairs.
Okay, CCAC meets generally every month from September through June. We take January off because we don't want to, but it's the first Monday of the month. Many of our meetings this year will be virtual. We will have a couple in person, which changes the equation, but it's a great opportunity to learn a little bit more, make connections with people in BCPS, and support our students. Yeah.
Thank you. And then the other thing, I did hear the note about our parent resource position, and that is being filled. I want to assure everyone that that is happening. But our last parent resource liaison decided to retire, and we wish her well, and we are filling that position. So I want to assure everyone of that. So anyway, thank you so much for this opportunity, and have a fantastic evening. Yeah. Thank you.
And 27 days till the start of the school year. Can you tell we are excited? We will see you August 28th. We're excited. The kids not so much, but we're ready. Have a great evening. Drive safely.